him from the yard.
This is Don the Diecast Pirate. Today I have something different for you. So I have a coloring book here from 1978. It's a Hot Wheels coloring book. I decided to look up on eBay 1970s Hot Wheels coloring books. I had a couple when I was a kid, so I would have gotten, I think I ended up having two of these actually. Obviously this is not the one for my, or one of them for my childhood because I just bought it. But I thought I would show it to you guys. Okay. And I haven't had this for a very, very long time. But I did have two of these. And this is what it is. Hot Wheels, a book to colors. It shows the Super Van, the Second Wind, and the patch with the Hot Bird on it. Now, I never did have a Super Van, and I don't know why. I never had the Second Wind. I did have a couple of Hot Birds when I was young. And so the first page, it shows some cars there. We have the mail getter. I think that's what that's called. The Poison Pinto, which I never had a Poison Pinto. Never had the Second Wind. I never had this race car. I'm not sure what that one is. I never had the Teetotaler or whatever you call that. And I never had that fire truck. So I saw in some of the pictures, okay, so, and I never did any of this either. So here's the first page. And this looks like something that I would have colored. Like that was about my skill when I was that age. And I never did cut out the pictures from the back and put on here. So and I didn't remember this either. So like and we'll get to the back page, but it shows where you can cut out the pictures and paste them on the page. So find 3 rescue team vehicles from the back cover, cut them out and glue them in, right? And so I never knew. So there was a paramedic, a fire eater. This is a fire eater, and the highway patrol. So the next page, and I don't want to handle this too much really, is the highway patrol, the fire eater, the chief special. I never had a chief special either. And then we have the emergency squad. I never had that. I never had a super van. There's a paramedic super van. Speedway specials. So there's a Rockbuster, American Victory, P917, Formula Pack, and then the Mercedes C3. Never had one of those. So there's the American Victory. I never had that. The Formula Pack, P-A-C-K. I'm not sure what that stands for. If you know, I mean, go ahead and put it in the comments. I mean, this is all about the cars, guys. So I never had either one of those. I never had a Rockbuster. I never had the Formula 5000. The Super Streeters. Corvette Stingray. I did have one that was red with the flames. Or I don't know, flames, whatever the flags are, flames. I did have a Heartbird. I never had a Super Van. I never had the Jaguar XJS. So there's the Stingray, yeah. So like with this, it's not really flames. It's like a ribbon or banner or whatever you want to call it that was on there. I did have one of those. The Hotbird. I did have 2 Hotbirds. I have a bunch now too. So I'll probably get those all out at some time and put them up on Instagram. But I had a black one that came with the Hot Wheels Service Center. And then later on, I got a blue one that was sold by itself. And there's an interesting detail, not a detail, it's like a defect on the bottom of some of those cars. But the two that I had did have that. And the bunch that I have now, some have it and some don't. I think I have less that have that defect than do, or than don't. If I could speak right. The Mustang Stalker, I never had one of those. And a P911, I never had one of those. So then there's a game here where object of the game is to land in the final box marked with the checker flags. First player starts by writing an X in 1, 2 or 3 boxes in a row. The second player then writes an O in the next 1, 2 or 3 boxes. So obviously that's something that I never did. Then the oldies but goodies, you got the Ramblin' Wrecker, which I did have. That was one of my very first Hot Wheels, was a Blackwall Ramblin' Wrecker. The Teetotaler I never had. The 57 Chevy and the Alive 55. I never had an Alive 55. I think I had a 57 Chevy, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. I know I had Matchbox 57 Chevys. I never had the Teetotaler. I never had the 31 Doozy. And the Alive 55 and the 57 T-Bird I never had. Interestingly enough, I do have some of these now. And the A-OK, I never had one of those. And then the next page is Al's Drive-In. And then they have like scrambled words. So hot dog, hamburger, chicken, ice cream sundae, lemonade, root beer, French fries, onion rings, is that shrimp? And coffee. And then we get into the heavies. And so the Maxi Taxi was one of my very first Hot Wheels. It was my very favorite Hot Wheels car. Back in 2012, we had a house fire and I lost my childhood collection. Like one of the things that I kept from my childhood was my collection of diecast cars, my Hot Wheels and Matchbox. And, I didn't have a whole lot. I have hundreds more now than I did back then. But, all of this that I'm doing now started because I thought, hey, I saw that they were selling Hot Wheels cars on eBay. I'm like, I could buy the cars that I lost and I set out to rebuild my collection. I wanted to just replace the collection that I lost. I didn't want more than that. I didn't want all this at the time, which, and I won't go into all that. But I started watching restoration videos. I'm like, hey, so I started buying. And the first car that I bought to replace from my childhood collection was the Maxi Taxi. And I did show a couple of those recently in a reel on Instagram. So if you go over there, you can see those. I never had the GMC motorhome. I never had the letter getter, and I never had the funny money. I still don't have a funny money. I do have some motorhomes. And I have some Maxi Taxis, obviously, and the letter getter. Okay. The GMC motorhome, the Ramblin' Wrecker. In case you guys didn't know, that phone number that was originally on there was Larry Woods, the designer of this Hot Wheels car. That was his actual phone number. The 56 Hightail Hauler. Okay. Which is really interesting because I have an orange one somewhere that's like really beat up, and I may do a restoration on it sometime. And I'll show this. So I'm going to put this up in a reel on Instagram, but I just got this one today, and I had one like this when I was a kid. So and then there's the letter getter. I never had a letter getter. I do have several of those now, which I don't think I've shown. Just looking up there, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I may have more. The drag strippers. So the Jet Threat 2, the Poison Pinto, the Prowler, and the Inferno. So the Odd Rod, I never had one of those. I never had a Prowler, which I do have some Prowlers now, and the Demon, which is what this car was named originally, but parents didn't like that. I never had a Jet Threat 2, and I do have a couple of those that we'll restore sometime. The cool one, I never had that. I never had a Neat Streeter. I do have a couple of those somewhere. The Twin Mill 2. I have some of these as well as some of the original Sweet 6. Well, they weren't Sweet 16s. I think they were second year. I could be wrong about that, but for some reason I was thinking that the Twin Mills were Sweet 16s, and I told somebody that, but they're not. They were not. The Twin Mill was not a Sweet 16. But this is an original one with the bearing wheels, and we'll do a restoration on this one sometime too. The Inferno, the drag car, I never had one of those. The Poison Pinto and the Roger Dodger. So I never had a Poison Pinto. I do have a couple of those to restore or customize, whatever. And then the Roger Dodger, I never had a Roger Dodger. And I do have a bunch of those in wrestling. You'll see those coming up next week on the channel for the Diecast International Builders Holiday Build. This one. Find the Inferno that is different from the others. And there was some, I don't remember what it was. There was, I think it had to do with the flames. So, yeah, it's this flame right here that's different. Classy Customs, the Buzz Off, the Science Friction, and the Red Baron. So the Red Baron, I never had a Red Baron. I never had a Paddy Wagon. I do have both of these now. The Buzz Off, I never had a Buzz Off. Originally it was called something else, and they changed the name, and it was Try Something. I forget. I do have Buzz Offs, a couple of Buzz Offs, and I do have a couple of the original. The Spoiler Sport. I never had one of these. I did do a restoration / should have been a Redline on the yellow Incredible Hulk, where I restored that and put the reproduction decals on it from Second Chance Redlines, and put reproduction Redline wheels on it. The Science Friction, I never had one of those. The Stage Fright, I never had one of these. Okay, then we have the Ice Tea. I never had one of those. I do have two of these now for future restorations. The Second Wind, as I said earlier, I never had a Second Wind. And then there was a Track Attack. And use 2 extra cars from the pack cover as playing pieces. Flip a coin for moves. Has to go 2 spaces ahead. Tails to go 1 space ahead. Huh. So, and then the Large Charge, I did have one of those. Another one of my favorite cars. And I would like, if I don't put this, so I have the decals from Second Chance Redlines to do a restoration. And I have 1 or 2 somewhere that, the one that I had was just like a Super Chrome. So I want to reproduce that in some way. And then the back cover is, so like they originally, intended you to cut these out and put them on the pages so you could see what the names of them are, because in the back cover they don't show. So I never had that car. I never had the Jet Threat. That would be super awesome to do a restoration on, one to make it look like that. I did have the Ramblin' Wrecker. I did not have the Teetotaler. I had the Maxi Taxi. I had the Corvette. I had the Hot Bird in that color, actually. I never had this P911. I do have some of these now for restorations. I never had the Jaguar. I never had a Poison Pinto. I never had the Rockbuster. I never had the GMC Motorhome. I never had a Super Van Paramedic or otherwise. I never had a 55 Alive. Interestingly, I did a restoration on one of these, and it shined up so well that I decided not to paint it, and I put the decals on and clear coated it. And that was originally a Redline car, which I did use reproduction Redline wheels on. Letter Getter, I never had one of those. I never had the Prowler. I never had this car. I did have one of these. I had... Okay. So, if I remember right, I think I had one white one, and I had two black with the 701 on the roof, and then I had a blue one. I don't believe I ever did have one of these 57 Chevys. I do have some somewhere now. I never had the Funny Money. I never had the Fire Eater. Again, never had a Super Van. I don't know what that is. I never had this T-Bird. I never had that. I never had this. I never had a Red Baron, and I never had the Fire Chief. But now that I have this, I may make this something for the future to get all these cars together. So obviously I think I have a teetotaler somewhere, unless I gave it away. I don't remember. I'll have to look through my cars and see. So I don't have that. I do have this now. I have Ramblin' Wreckers, and I have my very first Redline restoration was a Redline Ramblin' Wrecker. I may or may not have a teetotaler. I do have Maxi Taxis. Pretty sure I have these Corvettes. I have Hot Birds. I have the P911s. I don't have a Jaguar. I do have Poison Pintos. I have Rockbusters. I have GMC Motorhomes. I have tons of Super Vans. I have the Alive 55. I have a couple of them. I have Letter Getters. I have Prowlers. I don't have that. I do have some of these. I do have some of these. I don't have Funny Money. I think I bought one of these and it's coming, or not, or I may do it, or I may get one in the future. I may have decided to wait. Again, tons of Super Vans. Don't know if I have one of these or not. I do have the 57 T-Bird. I don't have that. I do have a great looking gold one of this car coming. I do have the Red Baron. In fact, here's my best red enamel Redline Red Baron. So this would have been from like 75, 74, 75, one or the other. So there's that. And I do have Fire Chief cars. So I think it's going to be kind of an interesting thing. Some of the cars that I have will need to be restored, and others don't. Obviously, the Red Baron, that won't need to be, But I think it would be pretty awesome to have all these cars that I used to look at when I was a kid and put them all together with this coloring book. So that's it. I'm going to call this one to a close. I do have, I showed you that hightail hauler. I'm going to throw that up on the turntable and put a reel on Instagram and a couple other things that came in today. So I'll put a few of those up tonight, and then I got to get some work done on cars. So thanks for watching, guys. Go over and check me out on Instagram. Doing some fun stuff over there. And leave a comment down below. Click the like button and ring the bell for notifications. As always, this is Don the Diecast Pirate, and I'll see you next time.